Starting therapy can feel like opening a door without really knowing what's on the other side. And there are so many different approaches: CBT, DBT, psychoanalysis, mindfulness. And let's be honest, it can be overwhelming. But what if I told you that understanding just a few key differences could actually help you find the right path for your healing journey? Let's go. Hey there, friends, and welcome back to Mindful Chatting. Today, we're diving into something that can be a total game changer for you when it comes to your mental health journey: understanding different types of therapy. And there is a lot. But whether you're just starting therapy, thinking about starting, or even if you've been in it for a while, sometimes it can feel like something's not quite clicking. And this episode is for you, because we're going to break down some of the most popular therapeutic approaches like cognitive behavioral therapy, or CBT, dialectical behavioral therapy, or DBT, psychoanalysis, and mindfulness-based therapies. My goal here is to help you feel more empowered and informed, because when you understand how therapy works, you're more likely to feel connected to the process and confident in your own healing. And as always, I'll be sharing some of my favorite tools and book recommendations to help you support you in between these sessions. So let's get started. So first, I want to say that I'm going to go over 4 of the biggest therapy modalities, but I want you to understand that I'm not going over all of them because there's just way too many, and there's way too many acronyms to really dive into every one. But these big 4 are kind of the foundational therapies, and the rest of the other therapies kind of gravitate off of this, but they have some key concepts that come off of these 4. And so this is the reason why I chose these 4 in particular. But I can let you know that there's a lot more. And if you have particular modalities that you would like me to go into further, please drop a comment in the podcast or the blog post, and I will definitely do blog posts or podcast episodes on those particular therapies. But let's start with CBT, or cognitive behavioral therapy. And this is one of the most widely researched and most practical therapy approaches out there. It focuses on the connection between your thoughts, feelings, and behaviors. If your inner dialogue tends to be more harsh or anxious, CBT can actually teach you how to recognize those thought patterns and shift them. So CBT in general thinks that your thoughts dictate your emotions, and your emotions dictate your behaviors, and your behaviors dictate your thoughts, and so on and so on. And so there's this big loop and pattern, and it's about breaking that cycle. And they believe that breaking that thought pattern is what will eventually break the feelings and also break the behaviors. And so a lot of cognitive behavioral therapy focuses on those negative distortions, those cognitive distortional patterns that we get into, and how to shift and change them. They use a lot of things like restructuring, reframing, challenging thoughts that are in those interventions within the actual therapy session, and they kind of teach you to do it on your own. Traditional cognitive behavioral therapy is actually very short-lived. You're not supposed to be in a cognitive behavioral therapy for very long, because the whole point of this therapy is they're supposed to be teaching you how you can do this on your own so that you can effectively do this outside of the therapy session and then graduate very quickly. That doesn't always change because, life happens, and sometimes we need a little bit more therapy than just a couple of sessions, but that's how originally CBT was kind of made, was this kind of short-lived, 6 to 8 sessions type thing. CBT is really best for anxiety, depression, phobias, stress, and really those unhelpful thought loops. Doesn't mean that you can't use CBT for other things, but these tend to be the core, disorders that CBT was really made for, and also is researched in to be evidence-based. And CBT can kind of help you identify and reframe those negative thoughts, can help you learn real-time coping skills, so things you can do actually in the moment when you have these cognitive distortions, and then also helps you create actionable, goal-oriented plans for how you can change this loop and this pattern. If you're looking for good CBT books, I would start off with Feeling Good, the New Mood Therapy, or Retrain Your Brain, Cognitive Behavioral Therapy in 7 Weeks, or the CBT Toolbox. I'll have a link in the show notes for all of these books if you're wanting to dive deeper into CBT. If you're looking for more CBT-based apps, there's CBT Thought Diary, and that can help track and reframe your negative thoughts. There's also something called Mood Notes, MOODNOTES, Mood Notes. And it's kind of this interactive journaling that uses CBT strategies while you're journaling. And then there's also Woebot, WOEBOT, and that is like an AI-based CBT support system, especially for kind of like daily check-ins. Again, this is not a therapist, but it can help analyze some of your thoughts and use CBT techniques to maybe help you in between sessions, that things that you have done with your therapist, to help you see where your thoughts are misaligning, or maybe you can change some of them. Again, I'll have all of the links in the show notes for these apps in particular. Now let's move on to dialectical behavioral therapy, or DBT. So DBT was actually originally designed for borderline personality disorder, or BPD, but DBT is now actually widely used for more about emotional dysregulation, impulsivity, and relationship struggles. It does blend a lot of the traditional CBT tools with like mindfulness and acceptance-based strategies, but in and of itself on its own is like its own structured system. And if you're in a traditional dialectical behavioral therapy program or curriculum, it's very structured. They have 4 modules and they go through them sequentially so that it builds upon itself. So ultimately, when you're going through all 4 of the modules, you have the whole system completed. DBT was actually made for a more intensive structure because it was made for borderline personality disorder. So a traditional DBT program, if you were to go into a clinic that just does DBT, it's very intensive, it's very short-lived, but it does a lot of group therapy. You go over these modules, and then you have individual therapy to how to use these modules in your own life. And then you also have access to a therapist 24/7 within that short, intensive period of time. And this is to really help people that are really in that emotionally dysregulated, unstable state, to bring them back to a more stable state. But I know a lot of therapists, and myself as well, who use a lot of DBT strategies to help with emotional dysregulation and impulsivity, and kind of dip in and out of the modules to kind of help create, distress tolerance skills. So it's not just you only can do it within a curriculum based. There's other ways of using this. I use a lot of mindfulness that's part of DBT, and a lot of the acceptance based that it talks about. But it does have some good structure with distress tolerance. But it is best for emotional regulation issues, impulsivity. If you're having intense relationships, there's a whole module on just interpersonal relationships. And if you're also struggling with chronic suicidal thoughts. So DBT is a really good place to start if you're having any one of these emotional struggles. And DBT will help you kind of increase this distress tolerance and manage your actual emotional storms in a more structured way. It'll help you practice mindfulness and help you stay grounded. And it also helps strengthens communication, and it really heavily supports boundary setting skills. If you're interested in DBT and want to go a little bit further into it, here's some books. The Dialectical Behavioral Therapy Skills Workbook. I actually use this one with my clients in session who want to do a more structured approach to DBT. This is a good place to start because it's a workbook. So it'll teach you concepts, but then it can go into reflection pages on how to use the actual concepts for yourself. There's also DBT Made Simple, and this one's really good if you're looking for something that's going to give you more intervention-based and quick to the point DBT skills. And also Don't Let Your Emotions Run Your Life. That's also by the same author, and that one's great for teens as well. Again, I'm going to have a link in the show notes for all of these books if you're interested. There are some apps that go into DBT skills. The DBT Diary Card and Skills Coach, and that kind of tracks your DBT skill use and emotional regulation. And there's also DBT Self-Help, which is a website, and it offers free resources for skill reminders and tools. And I'll put a link in the show notes for both of these as well. All right, the third therapy modality that we're going to go into is called psychoanalysis. And think of this as like a deep reflective work that explores the unconscious mind. So psychoanalysis was really developed by Sigmund Freud. And I know people always have this kind of scoffing against him, but he did create a really good therapy. And the way that we actually do a lot of therapy today is off of driven what Freud did with his patients. But psychoanalysis is all about that inner drive and those past experiences and how they shape how you feel and relate to others presently in the today. Psychoanalysis is not short-lived like DBT and CBT. It's actually a journey of like self-exploration and transformation. And so you can see people who are in the psychoanalysis therapy for quite some time, like think years and years and years, because this is really going deep into your past and how your past is shaping your present and also your future. So this is really good if you're looking for long-term personal growth, or if you have unresolved trauma, or if you have reoccurring relational patterns within your relationships and you want to focus on why you have them and how you want to move towards something different. Psychoanalysis can help you gain deeper insight into your past and your present patterns by exploring those unconscious motivations, and it can also heal this unresolved inner conflict over time. Psychoanalysis is not for the weak. It is very deep and very big. Psychoanalysis people or therapists are very more direct and confrontational with things. And they really focus on the relationship in the session and how that's also impacting your ability to open up and deal with your relational patterns as well, which is very interesting. But if you'd like to go deeper into psychoanalysis, there's a couple of books that don't necessarily go into the psychoanalysis therapy, but they talk about doing a deeper exploration of work. The Examined Life is a good one, or maybe you should talk to someone. Also, Attached is a really great. I loved Attached, that book, reading that. But this one talks about attachment styles and leading into that and how that affects your relationships. If you're looking for apps, there's not many apps that do psychoanalysis, I'm going to be honest with you, because it's so deep. And if you're really interested in doing something like that, I would highly encourage you going to a therapist who has had some psychoanalysis training or continuing education, something that they can go deeper in with you if this is something that you're really interested in. Last, we're going to talk about the mindfulness-based therapies. So mindfulness has really been a buzzword recently, but it is a proven strategy for calming the mind and building emotional awareness. And therapies like mindfulness-based stress reduction, or MBSR, or mindfulness-based cognitive therapy, or MBCT, help you become more present and compassionate with yourself. There's a lot of other mindfulness-based therapies, but those are kind of the bigger ones. But there is like substance abuse mindfulness-based recovery. There's a lot of different types of mindfulness-based therapies to kind of go with if you're interested in that. But this is really best if you're struggling with stress, anxiety, rumination, burnout, or just wanting to feel more grounded with yourself. Mindfulness therapies can help you kind of stay present instead of spiraling into worry. They can reduce emotional reactivity and increase your calm, plus build a more compassionate relationship with yourself. If you're looking for mindfulness-based therapy books, Wherever You Go, There You Are is a really great one to start if you're wanting to learn about mindfulness and meditation. The Mindful Self-Compassion Workbook is really great because it goes off of the author Kristen Neff, who did self-compassion, but then there's a workbook off of that book. So again, with a workbook, you're going to have a lot of concepts, but then you're going to have a lot of reflection and the ability to practically apply it to your life. And then Radical Acceptance is also a great one. If you're looking for apps, I love Brain FM. Brain FM it uses AI technology to create music to get you into different emotional states. And it also has guided meditations on there. But if you're looking to be more present and also induce a certain emotional state while you're doing things like creativity, focus, Brain FM is a great place to start with that. All right, my friends, we've come to the end. So whether you're looking for structure or strategy with CBT, emotional regulation with DBT, or just a deeper self-understanding through psychoanalysis, or even a more mindful, grounded approach in daily stress, there is a therapy style out there that can help support you. And reminder, therapy isn't a one-size-fits-all experience. The approach that works best for you might evolve as you do. What matters most is finding a space and really a therapist that feels safe, supportive, and aligned with your goals. So if you're curious about starting therapy or want to explore these approaches further, check out the show notes for some of those recommendations and resources and apps that I talked about. And of course, if you're looking for a therapist trained in these modalities, look for a therapist that's going to offer you the safeness that you're looking for, but also that's trained in a lot of these modalities to help. Until next time, take care of yourself and give yourself permission to explore what healing looks like for you. This podcast may contain affiliate links, and if you click on these links and make a purchase, I may receive a small commission at no extra cost to you. I only recommend products and services that I personally use and believe will add value to you. Thank you for supporting the podcast.